I think it affected my first book very much. A lot of people presented my first book, and I guess the publicity people said, well, you know, this is a trial and there's an attorney on both sides or whatever. And it was really not like that. It was really me talking to a reader the way I would talk to my students about this story, to see who people are, to see their varying, you know, competing stories about what happened. I would say it did influence me. But also, I would have to say, it comes from, I mean, so much in law teaching is, you know, you try to tell people to think like a lawyer. What it really is teaching people critical thinking. And I think that could be done in law professors do that, and really good historians do that as well. But I would say that, sure, this is, I don't know that I was influenced by it, but it's certainly, I'm working in the same vein as those people are working.
Congratulations, Professor Gordon-Reed, on a remarkable read.
Thank you.
I'd like to tell just a personal incident and a question. My husband purchased the book for me when it first came out because my physician 55 years ago was Dr. C.T. Hemings at St. Luke's Hospital. You mention in your copious notes, which is almost like another read itself, that the Hemings family spelled it either with one M or two M's. Mm-hmm. My physician spelled it with two M's. And I wondered if some of the descendants of Sally and Thomas Jefferson acknowledged this relationship and genealogical tree well into the 20th century.
Oh, absolutely. Most of Madison Hemings, the two youngest children, Madison Hemings and Eston Hemings, moved to Ohio, to Chillicothe, and a good number of their descendants are in Ohio. When they have their family reunions, they have them in Columbus or other places in Ohio. So yes, this is something that members of the family kept alive in their family history, but it wasn't anything that they talked about to other outsiders. It's difficult to imagine today, but the stigma of illegitimacy was a real impediment to people. You didn't talk about the fact that your grandmother had children when she wasn't married. And of course, Sally Hemings couldn't have been married to Thomas Jefferson. And so this is not the sort of thing, oh, you know, let me go talk about this, because it would mean that you were illegitimate. That phrase that people used during that time period. So it was something that was done quietly. At Monticello, they have a program called Getting Word. Cinder Stanton and Diane Swan Wright. What they've been doing is interviewing the descendants of all the families who were at Monticello. And it takes a lot to actually get people to, it took a while for people to come forward and talk about this, because one person said, you know, everybody, my parents used to tell me, there's something I'm going to tell you about, but I'll have to wait until you're older. They thought they were going to say somebody in their family had been in prison or had murdered somebody or something, and then it would turn out to be this. But it really was this, because, I mean, the first generation of people, I don't have any sense that they were very religious. The next generation of people become very religious, and this becomes a source of, well, shame, something, not shame, something to be kept quiet. You just don't talk about it. So they did keep it alive in their family, but not to trumpet to other people because of that sort of social stigma that attached to the situation.
Would you please tell us how your attitudes and feelings toward Thomas Jefferson might have evolved during the course of your research?
Well, well, you know, I would have to say, I sort of decided a long time ago that it was what it was, you know, that the big problem for me, and I think for many people with Jefferson and sort of grappling with the founding generation, is that they were slave owners. I mean, I find it, I mean, the Sally Hemings story, I mean, a story about a guy, I mean, you know, who's living in France, and somebody sends his wife's teenage half-sister to live with him, and he's supposed to be the chaperone for 2.5 years. That's not a good setup. you know? I mean, it's not a good setup. It would not be a good setup in slavery. It wouldn't be a good setup today or I mean, that's a human thing, a human failure, if you want to say, that I can fathom. And I understand how this has happened to English servant. I mean, this is something that happens. That's why you don't send your teenage girls to live with widowers. You know, was it Ethan Frome? I mean, what is this? I mean, they write novels about this stuff. But the slave owning part of it, I mean, the idea, when I'm reading a letter, and there he is in 1816, and he's talking to another overseer at Poplar Forest, and they're negotiating the sale of a 3-year-old girl. The overseer wants to buy the 3-year-old girl from her mother. He doesn't go through with it. But the fact that there's no planet on which, I mean, I can't, fathom that. The Sally thing, I mean, she walks away from Monticello. She and all of her kids walk away from Monticello. They're buying silver at an estate sale, in the 1830s when other black people are still slaves. I mean, that can't be the worst thing that he ever did when there are all these other things that are going on. So I guess I would say, I admire Jefferson for all of the contributions to American nation, but I don't think it's necessary. The admiration does not have to be total hero worship, am I saying? Do you understand? It's not. I recognize him as a flawed person, as we are all flawed people, but flawed in a particular way in an unfathomable society, slavery, as a slave owner. So I don't think my basic attitude about him has changed. I've just grown to know lots about him. The thing about Jefferson is that lots of people love it's like anything where people love but don't really love in this sort of unbridled way, but they don't really know the person. And the trick for me for real admiration is if you can continue to admire somebody after you know things about them, and not just the sort of superficial, isn't it a great house, all these great gadgets, and he was so smart, and all those things. Those are wonderful things, but this, to me, is this is a serious figure of American history that you have to grapple with. There isn't anybody. I mean, Washington is Washington because he's the first president and everything, but there's not anybody whose life touches so many different parts of American life. Politics, the founding of the nation, politics, race, Native Americans, diplomacy, philosophy, science. He is everywhere. There's no grappling with America without grappling with him. And so that's the way I see it. It's not a question of, love, hate, or anything. It's just that he is too important not to be talked about and reckoned with in some sort of way. And so the more I find out about him and the good things and the bad things, that sort of understanding is reinforced. And that's why after I finish the Hemingses, my next task will be, I want to do a biography of Jefferson because I think it has to be redone in a way, and not just about the Hemings things, but just in general. There's so much, we've learned so much about slavery in the Chesapeake, so much more sophisticated understanding of the founding, and that needs to be brought forward. So I don't think my attitude has basically changed, but I've learned more, and I appreciate more, I think.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland Forum, we've been listening to Annette Gordon-Reed, the author of The Hemingses of Monticello. Thank you, Ms. Gordon-Reed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.